right, everybody, we're back with our introduction to the horses that we are doing in the conditioning study that Energy Equine Veterinary Services and InHand Equine Therapy have done over the last couple months. We're excited to do these Meet the Horses segments because I think it'll help you understand a little bit more about the horses, hopefully give you a bit of background, but also inspire you for some horses that you guys have at home that are in the exact same scenario as some of the horses that we're bringing to you with this little mini study that we're doing. We have Kim Krebs here from Krebs Equine and also one of the team members on InHand Equine Therapy. And we're going to talk about her second horse in the study right now. How are you, Kim?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Tina. You?
Really good. Thank you so much. So give us the name of the next horse in the study.
For sure. So the next one is my mare. Her name is Flew to the Moon, registered name. We call her Julie. And she is a little bit more complicated than Mr. Neverray was. So
okay, so we'll
to go through.
We'll have a little bit more to go through here. Okay, I love it. So if you could tell me her age and her breed.
Sure. She is a 12-year-old as well, cutting horse, mare.
Okay. And has she had a baby, just being a mare, just asking?
No, she's unfortunately not. We have attempted 3 times to breed with her. The first time she did catch, but it was done by AI. However, she then reabsorbed it through the summer. And the last 2 attempts we've done with her, she unfortunately just didn't even catch. So
shoot. Okay. So maybe some of the stuff that'll come up with her, because she's got some pain things and some body things going on. Maybe if we resolve some of that, we'll have better luck in the future for a little soft velvet nose.
Yeah, that would be great. That is something looking forward to.
Excellent. I love it. Can you give me her height and her weight?
Sure. So Julie is about 15'1", and her weight is approximately 1,050 pounds.
Perfect. And what housing or environment does she live in?
So she lives with Neverray out in a 1-acre pasture, and again is then brought in at nighttime and stays in and then goes back out in the morning. So roughly at the moment about 12 hours out and 12 hours in.
Okay, great. And feeds and supplement routine for her?
So hers is a little bit more complicated than what we had with Neverray. And we'll get into sort of the reasons why in a minute. But at the moment, she is on a beet pulp, again, a cup that is soaked. And then she's also on the Pro Fiber Crunch, a cup of that. And she is on the G's formula, what they call their works or insulin resistant formula, which consists of cinnamon and cranberry. And that is twice a day. So she gets that in the morning and at night. In the morning feed, she only gets that works formula on top of Pro Fiber Crunch. Whereas at night is when she gets the beet pulp, the Pro Fiber, the works. And she is also on a another medication. And sorry, don't actually have we'll get that from Chad later, but the name of the long name, we call it just Levo, that she's on as well. So
okay, super. And what's her farrier schedule?
She's on every 6 weeks that she gets a trim, and she will have shoes on as well when she is being ridden for show season. Her shoes, we have tried different things with her because again, we'll see a little bit further on into her questioning here, but she needs some suspensory support. So they have chosen to put her in a bar shoe more often than not. If she's in a regular shoe, she doesn't seem to do as well as she does in the bar shoe.
Okay, and those bars are on the front?
Correct. Yeah, just on the front feet. Yeah.
Okay, fun. And then what is her teeth and vaccine schedule?
So she as well has been on a yearly teeth schedule. And at this point, we will have her checked every 6 months, as I indicated. With Neverray, it is one of those where we have another horse on the property who needs it more consistently. So we'll just have her checked to make sure. But that's where she's at, is once a year that so I think I said once a month. Once a year is where she gets her teeth done. Has not had any major concerns other than just, the regular sharp edges and whatnot. Vaccination, she usually gets a 6-way as well here in the spring. And then regular maintenance when she's in showing, she goes every 6 months and has her checked to make sure flexions and whatnot, to make sure she's sound and going to be able to perform.
Excellent. Perfect. And with having said that, other than soundness things that we'll get into a little further down the conversation here, any health issues? I did notice that you had said with the work supplement, is she metabolic, or does she have any health issues?
Yeah, so Julie has recently, I should back up. When I first bought her, she's always been in very good condition and has maintained, and again, we'll get into that in a second. But with some prolonged time off here where we've been trying to do the breeding, we really noticed her retaining fat extensively, and specifically in certain pocketed areas, because as well of the inability to conceive. It was one of those questions that, is there something else going on? So we did pull blood work on her here in January, and Dr. Hewlett did note that her thyroid had elevated numbers, and we'll have to ask him to give us a little bit more history in terms of what all that means. Though he was the one that decided that she has a metabolic tendency. Now, so she's not quite what they would call full-blown metabolic syndrome. However, she's on the verge. And so we have continued with the works, the G's formula works, and also then put her on that Levo. And that is a drug specifically for metabolic syndrome.
Okay, cool. All right. And then could you go back for us, and we'll start into some of her performance history. Could you start as a young horse and kind of let us know as much as you know of her young horse performance history?
Absolutely. So she, again, was a horse that was born and bred in Texas, and she did have the first 6 years of her life were there. So all of her training, all of her show career was in Texas, as what we call in our industry aged events. So that is up until 6 years old. They have specific classes outside of your weekend shows. So she was shown both aged event and as a weekend horse in both the non-pro and the open division. So that's an important thing to note, just because I'm not 100% sure in terms of if they doubled up on her at shows, or if it was just she would show non-pro one weekend, open another weekend. But knowing, how things work here, the likelihood is she was doubled up on. So that just means both the open and the non-pro rider would both show her in a weekend.
Okay.
So she showed down there extensively until she was 6. And at that point, they put her up to the NCHA Futurity sales as a show horse, and which is not uncommon for people to do, because down there, everything in Texas is about the aged events for the most part.
Okay.
And so when horses age out, which she was aging out, they then will try to sell them. And so in her case, I was very fortunate to be in a situation where I was looking for a show horse. She was there, I was there, and here she is now in Canada.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then what did you get to do with her?
Yeah, so I bought her, as I say, she was 6, coming 7. So as a 7-year-old, I brought her back here to Canada and went right back into showing her. So she really didn't have any time off at all. poor thing. But she was in super condition at that point, because they were obviously fitting her and had been showing her as well all through that fall and that year. So we just kept showing her. She did exceptionally well for me. I was coming off of some pretty major health issues at the time, so wasn't the best condition for myself. but she did an amazing job packing me.
Nice.
She did get shown a few times by my trainer in the open when I wasn't necessarily as strong or able to do myself. And then that summer that we purchased her, so over 6 months after we purchased her, my trainer's daughter was in the high school rodeo finals and needed a horse to take down to those finals in the States, down in Wyoming. So she asked if she could borrow Julie, and I obliged because she's such a great rider. I knew that she wasn't going to do any harm to the horse. So Julie went down and showed down there as well that same year. And then we finished off that year doing really well in the both Canadian and Alberta show circuit. Sorry, we were reserve in what they call the 25,000 novice horse non-pro, and
Wow.
and then also finished champions in the 7-Up at the Canadian Supreme. So
Fantastic.
yeah, it was a pretty stellar first year for us. I was pretty stoked.
No kidding. What a superstar mare.
Yeah, she is.
And then what were you doing with her to lead to this time off?
So I continued to show her the following year, and she had started to show a little bit of some soreness issues, which we'll get into in a second. I'll finish off the rest of her showing history, but so not as stellar as we had been the previous year. At that point, at the end of that show season, we decided that she was 9 at that time, and maybe a good idea to start trying to breed her, because she is such a fabulous horse that really is one of those that you should have a baby out of her. And I don't have the funds to do the embryo transfers. So
Right.
she was definitely going to have to carry it. And that was our intent. So her 10-year-old year she was bred, that was when she did catch. And so I thought, she's having the year off, she's having the baby. Julie, unfortunately, is not the type of horse that likes to have time off. And she was not very happy with the fact she was just turned out to pasture. So I'm not sure if that played a part. We'll, never really know. But she did absorb that baby that summer. Unfortunately, too late to rebreed. So I did a little bit of riding with her before we decided, well, we'll bring her back and show her next year. Because she just didn't feel like she was ready to be a mom yet, and
Right.
She really did miss the show pen. And so we did bring her back. She had another stellar start to that year. And in fact, it was when I marked the highest score I've ever on any horse, let alone her, but it was
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was a 150, which in the cutting horse world is pretty high, very high. So that was pretty remarkable. And the following day is when things went downhill for her, unfortunately. And what we gather is she probably tweaked herself in the show pen the day before when she was so physical. And since then, we have not shown her. And she has continued to sort of have a roller coaster of, are we trying to bring her back? She needs time off. Trying to bring her back? She needs time off. So essentially, she has had the last 2 years completely off, other than a 2-month period where we tried to bring her back, and she unfortunately showed soreness again. So last year we did try and rebreed her, and she didn't catch. So she was again without anything through the summer. She didn't get any riding at all because of the injury and whatnot. So yeah, and that's where we currently are with her, is essentially two whole years without any condition whatsoever.
And do you have a little bit of prognosis for us? I know when we get to Dr. Chad involved and we're going through the horses from a veterinary perspective, he might have a little bit more information, but just on the meet the horses segment, when she did get hurt, did you have a prognosis for her? Were you expecting the 2 years?
Yeah, no, not at all. I think, again, it's one of those where I maybe need to go back a little bit with her, in that when I first purchased her, the way the sales go, you have their x-rays available to view, and you have a veterinarian that's in the room, the x-ray room, to go over the x-rays with you. She was clean on hock stifles and front limb. And so I had no concern. When we purchased her, we did find out that she did have a slight history of suspensory soreness. So we managed her just through, wrapping and cold hosing and, managing that way. Now, after the Wyoming show where she went down to the high school finals, she did come back sore on the suspensories. So we did some shockwave therapy with her. She responded really well to that, and finished. That was our stellar year that she had. So she did super well with the shockwave. So the suspensories have always been something that's been on our radar with her. But what happened in the show pen after we marked that 150 and she came out, she was fine until the following day when we tried to ride her. And again, if you were not to really be too cognizant of what was going on, you wouldn't notice that she was sore or really off at all. It was very mild, but she had definitely tweaked, is what the official term was, her stifle. And it was her left stifle. And when she was first observed by the veterinarians, and was given the tweaked diagnosis, that they had said, give her a month off. And at that point, if she comes back and she's a little bit sore, give her a little bit more time off. So our goal was not to give her extended time. Unfortunately, during that summer was the year that I had some personal family issues happen, and my family member passed away, so I had to leave. So she ended up getting actually 10 months off because of that situation, but it wasn't what was initially prescribed.
Right.
Once she came back and we tried to show her or bring her back into condition, we weren't even showing her at that point, obviously, but just bring her back into condition. And you could tell again, mildly, that it was one of those things, she's just not right. It's just not Julie. So we had it looked at again. They this time ultrasounded it and found that there was some effusion on that stifle. So
okay.
Yeah, so that's where, we've really been babying her. Again, it was Prognosis, no, she should come back from this, no problem, but we just need to give her more time off. So that's why she's had this extended than the summer when we tried to breed her and let her carry a baby. So yes, and that's now where we currently are. Now, Dr. Hewlett did re-ultrasound that stifle in January before we started in this conditioning program, because I wanted to make sure that she was going to be okay to do that. And at this point, he'll be able to talk more to this when we get into that portion of the program here. But there still is some effusion. So we have pulled blood on her, and we are planning on doing some IRAP as well, if need be.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Super. And would you have some goals for her going forward into this 2020 season that that you'd really like to be able to see realized because of bringing her back in a very organized fashion here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is the key. Like you're talking about, Tina, I know I've brought you in to help me with this mare because she is definitely very close to my heart. And I'm a little bit too close to her in some ways because I want to make sure that I do right by her. She's been wonderful for me. And so my goal ultimately, obviously, would be that I could show her again, because she is incredible in the show pen. She loves to show. But I also know that as physical a mare as she is when she shows, I don't know if, and even at this point, Dr. Hewlett still, we don't know if she's going to be able to be strong enough in that stifle to get to that point. That would be our ultimate goal.
Okay.
And we'll see if we can make enough changes with her so that she better supports her body, so that the stifle doesn't get this type of torque to it. but that would be goal number, gold star.
Okay, perfect.
Otherwise, my goal with her simply would be that she comes back as a sound riding horse. And if I, switch doing some different discipline, even if it's not in a competitive manner, she's not the type of horse, and I'm not the type of rider that's just wanting to do trail rides.
Right.
So, we would want to find something else, whether it be, Western dressage or something different. Anyways, would be our next goal. So for sure, riding her is on the top list. And eventually we'd love to still have a baby from her too.
Cool. Excellent. Well, she's a great horse for anybody out there that's had a horse that's been injured with a major injury. And wants to know if there's a possibility of bringing the horse back. This will be a great case study to watch and to learn from. So she'll be a excellent learning horse for all of us.
Absolutely. I'm actually really excited, especially from a standpoint of, I think so much of what's happened in terms to cause these injuries, no fault of anybody other than, it was the way her posture and the way she chose to, and whether it was because she wasn't strong enough when she was first, you know what I mean? Who knows? There's lots of elements that will lead up to why she uses her body the way she does. But I'm just really interested to see, if we can change that posture to now actually make her that much stronger to make this, a miraculous comeback, hopefully.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Great horse for us to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Kim, for being willing to share this horse with everybody. And I'm excited to see the changes that we get as we go through this. Yay. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.